Guten Tag, willkommen bei der Präsentation. Ich freue mich, heute dabei zu sein und eingeladen zu sein. Mein Deutsch ist okay, aber gibt es bei euch Leute, die Englisch nicht verstehen? Is it okay if we do it in English? All right. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, I know the title of this presentation might sound a bit surprising, but it comes from basically the hundreds of discussion meetings we had with customers, not just in Germany, not just in Europe, worldwide, really. So I'll start with why does it make sense to think about this? And obviously, we can think about growth. How can you manage growth without, expanding your workforce? There is, in many regions of the world, and also in Germany, a shortage of forklift drivers. I don't think it's a huge surprise. We have also statistics. We have driving statistics on our robots, and clearly reducing, I said, it's written accident, but really it's incidents. Incident and accidents. So obviously when you go for a driverless forklift, you massively reduce the amount of incident and accidents. I'll come back to that later on. Now just one other slide. Actually we got some support from Interact Analysis, a great company in the UK. What does it show? It just basically shows that if we think that the amount of warehouse growth is stopped, well actually in Germany alone, it's supposed to grow even further. So when you think about the shortage of labor we already have today, well, that's going to increase. Now, focusing this aspect to driverless forklift, there's roughly 20% in traditional warehousing, where you can easily convert material transport to autonomy. Now, the reality is by far more than 90%, probably more than 95% of all the warehouses in Germany have zero driverless forklift. And the reason is why? And the answer is not that obvious. When you look at where does Germany now specifically stand on driverless forklift, clearly it's the #1 market in the world, maybe on par with the US right now, with roughly 500 units a year. So it's small, especially when you compare how many manual forklifts are sold every year in Germany, and that's 25,000, all right? So there's something here. Okay, so why again driverless forklifts? When they are today, obviously they're presented from value, but I think I can speak also for other vendors and manufacturers. Today, robots are truly flexible. They are usually scalable, and they are usually profitable, all right? I'm not going to read through the slide. I think the slide will be shared after the presentation, so you can read through it. But that's an important aspect. Now come to the core of this presentation, which is, that's something we basically thought was a good way to present it. This matrix, 100% to less than 10%. I happen to have worked before Balio at another vendor, and when you discuss with all the players on the market, this is a reality. Out of 100 projects we get presented to us, less than 1/3 actually go to the budgeting phase, and way less than 10% get truly executed. So there's a huge loss from start to end, and the question is why? And we've listed here, and again, I'm not going to read that, a few elements of why people don't do it. And if I was to summarize it into one word, and this word actually not comes from me, comes from some of the site managers, CEOs, CFOs, whoever we've been working with, fear. Fear is not going to work. I don't have anybody in my organization who can support a project like this. We've never done it before. Is it going to work? Is it, something which maybe fail? Will I increase my incident rate? Etc., etc. So I think really, not just Balio, but any company in this industry should work to reduce this fear, because there are many answers to this fear. I know there are many 3PL companies on this trade show, and we all know that 3PL companies usually have 3 to 5 year contracts, right, with their customers. And sometimes comes the question, well, if the return on investment is 3 years, and I have a contract of 3 years with my customer, How am I supposed to do that? And even for that, there are answers, you know? So if you are working only maybe 2 shifts or almost 2 shifts, and the return on investment, the payback, indeed, will probably be around 3 years. But that's if you think investment. Now, if you think leasing, if you think robotics as a service, and you're paying by the pallet move, then your return on investment can be immediate. You're dropping your OPEX spending by using robots, while at the same time securing future growth, while at the same time reducing your incidents, your product, your rack breakage through operators, while suppressing other costs which are usually not taken into the equation, which are typically recruiting, training costs of forklift drivers. All right? And usually they are not taken into account in the equation. Now, how do you actually reduce the fear of people considering going for that? And at least at Value, we believe that there is one first step one should do is what we call understanding the site. Usually, we start off projects like this, intended projects from the previous slide, using CAD files, which are maybe sometimes 20 years old. So they are not even actual anymore. So what we do is we basically come, scan the site, in this case in 3D, and this gives many information, as you can see, which helps us then build remotely without being on site, without spending hours on site. We can be done remotely, building, circuiting, simulating. When we do a project like this, we want first to make sure that you're buying the right size fleet for the material flow you have today and maybe tomorrow, right? So for doing that, you need to simulate your material flow with a true movement of the robot in a real environment. Even if it's a virtual digital environment, it's an environment which has been scanned. It's not, again, a DWG data, a CAD file. And through that, you can right-size, basically, your fleet. Once we've done that, we also have tools to do bidding online. This is all web-based. Obviously, then there is the commissioning phase, and then the operating phase. Operating phase, in this case, this is what we call a fleet manager, where you can manage and see your fleet into your site. In this case, there is no, let's say, Draufsicht, bird view of your site, but it could be uploaded. And at the bottom, you see, obviously, the same way the operator, the driver gets the tasks. So each robot has its task and needs to execute its tasks. All right? There's one word which is underlined, servicing. These are forklifts. First forklift and then robots, driverless forklifts. So usually servicing is underestimated. It's critical that you make sure that when you buy a fleet of robots, you have the right structure, teams, process, guarantee in place that the servicing will be effective. And that obviously your fleet doesn't stand for weeks, stop because there is a missing part, because there is no service technician in the area, all right? So very important, you don't forget servicing when you engage on a project like this. All right, and how do we do that? Well, we do that obviously with, here's the Value family, so some of the, vehicle we propose on the market, from floor to floor up to 17 meters. So today, and not just with Value again, you have robots to basically do anything in your warehouse. I've been talking a lot about warehouse. I could talk also about manufacturing sites, all right? So same challenges. And yeah, we have to make sure as an organization, as a vendor, that it's affordable, obviously. I've talked about that a little bit. That is simple to design phase, but simple to implement and simple to operate. Last week, I had a customer visiting us, and he said, look, we have AGVs which are 15 years old, and one thing I want to change is the complexity of this machine. No operators know how to operate this machine because they are too complicated. So we should do, and I think we are doing the right work to make sure they are easier to operate. All right? So, if you want to download, I invite you to scan the QR code and take some questions. We are here not just for a presentation. If you have any questions.
Vielen Dank. Thank you for the moment. And I think we have one question. Es ist eine Frage auf Deutsch. Ich lese sie auch auf
Alles
Deutsch
gut.
vor. In einem typischen Lager- und Produktionsstandort, wie weit kann die von Ihnen angesprochene Umstellung gehen?
Okay. Also es hängt davon ab. Aus Erfahrung, also die 100%ige Automatisierung oder Autonomie ist der falsche Ansatz. Okay? Es werden immer Tasks, Aufgaben, die Menschen machen, viel besser, viel effizienter als Maschinen. Aus Erfahrung, wenn wir einen Produktionsstandort oder ein Lager automatisieren, 30-40% aller Materialflüsse werden durch Roboter dann ersetzen. Ja? Also, sorry, I switched to English.
Yeah,
but,
but, I think
okay.
we have both languages now, because the second and last question is in English. How do you see the importance of cobots on AMRs to really add or substitute existing workforce?
Well, the substitution I don't really like, because the reality is when client invests for products like this, for a robot like this, usually it's to manage growth with slightly growing or non-growing organization, right? So I've rarely seen customers actually releasing teams because they put robots. They usually reallocate teams to tasks that humans are much better to do, all right? So that's point number one. Point number two, the cohabitation obviously brings another subject on the table, which is how to make sure that robots from Balio, but also robots from other vendors can collaborate together. And today we have companies, I can name Idealworks, just here. There's other companies, CNOs, we've seen them, which are proposing also platform to make sure we can make all these machines cohabit on the same place.
Thank you for the moment. If there are more questions, where can we find you today, later here?
We're on the booth just around the corner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.